The morning I realized I was in a boundary dispute over wet laundry. I was standing barefoot in my backyard with a mug of coffee staring at a stranger's bedsheet clipped across my fence like somebody had planted a flag. Not blown there by wind, not hanging by accident, but stretched tight corner to corner, catching the Ohio sun like it paid property taxes. And I remember thinking, well, one of us has gotten way too comfortable. I live just outside Columbus, Ohio, in one of those neighborhoods where the houses sit close enough together that you learn people's routines without trying. You hear garage doors, dogs barking, kids crying, somebody sneezing through an open window. Fences exist, sure, but they feel less like hard borders and more like polite reminders. This is mine, that is yours. Let's both try to act civilized. My backyard backs up to another yard and our fences meet right down the middle, wood against wood. I'm not a difficult neighbor. I keep to myself, mow on Saturday's wave when I see you, and leave it at that. I like things simple, predictable, quiet. So the first time I saw one of their clothes hanging over my fence, I didn't think much of it. It was just a gray t-shirt, damp, drooping into my yard. I figured the wind had carried it over and I tossed it back. 2 days later, it was a towel. That one made me pause because it wasn't tangled or half fallen. It was laid flat across the top rail, wrinkles smoothed out like somebody had set it there on purpose. Still, I let it go. I told myself I was overthinking a towel, which is not a sentence any grown man wants to say out loud. Then it kept happening. A sock one day, jeans the next, then another shirt, then a pillowcase. Same spot, same pattern. The family behind me had a smaller yard, a lot of kids, and laundry going constantly. Their clotheslines were always full. My fence sat a little higher, caught more afternoon sun, got a better breeze. Perfect drying conditions, apparently, if you were willing to pretend my property was part of your setup. That was what started bothering me. Not the laundry itself, it's just fabric. But there's something strange about seeing someone else's belongings in your space day after day. Your yard stops feeling fully yours. It starts feeling borrowed. My friend Mark noticed it before I admitted. It bothered me. He pointed at a pair of little socks hanging off the top and said, "You start a laundry business I don't know about." I laughed because that was easier than saying, yeah, this is actually starting to get under my skin. Then came the bed sheet. I stepped outside one morning and there it was, a full-size sheet stretched across 2 fence panels, clipped tight, blocking part of my view, glowing in the sunlight like a sail. That wasn't an accident. That took effort. That took somebody looking at my fence and deciding, yeah, this'll do. That was the moment it stopped being about laundry and became about boundaries. So that afternoon, I finally said something. I caught my neighbor Daniel out in his yard with a plastic basket under one arm and kids running around him. I kept my tone easy. "Hey," I said, "I've noticed some clothes ending up on my side lately. Just wanted to check in." He looked up, smiled, and waved it off. "Oh yeah, sometimes stuff spills over when we're drying it." Spills over. That phrase stuck with me because a bedsheet clipped across 2 fence panels does not spill over. But I nodded anyway. I smiled back. I chose peace. For a few days after that, things stopped. The fence stayed clear and I actually felt relieved. Then about a week later, it started again, only this time it got bolder. I walked out one morning and found 3 things hanging in a row. 2 t-shirts and a pair of kids' shorts clipped evenly, like somebody had stepped back to admire the arrangement. And that's when I saw them. Bright blue clothespins. I just stood there, staring at those pins because that changed everything. Clothes might blow, towels might slide, but clothespins don't attach themselves. Somebody had reached over the line and used my fence like it belonged to them. My silence apparently had been translated into permission. I took the clothes down one by one, unclipped each pin, and set everything back over on their side. I wasn't trying to start a war over damp cotton. But something had shifted in me. Every morning after that, if I found something hanging there, I removed it. A towel, a superhero shirt, a pillowcase. Same motion, same question getting louder in my head. Why am I the one adjusting to something I never agreed to? I mentioned it to my sister one night. She laughed at first, then said, "Just tell him to stop." Easy advice when you're not the one living next door to the tension. That's the thing about neighbors. You don't get one confrontation and then disappear. You keep seeing them. I didn't want every backyard moment turning into a cold war over laundry. So I tried the polite route again. I went to the hardware store and bought a small outdoor sign, nothing rude, just plain black letters on white. "Please do not hang items on fence." That was it. Clear, calm, impossible to misunderstand unless you were committed to misunderstanding it. I mounted it on my side of the fence right where most of the laundry had been showing up. For a week it worked. Then one afternoon I got home from work, stepped into the backyard, and there it was, again another sheet light blue, this time stretched tight across two panels like the sign didn't even exist. I actually laughed. The sign was right there clear as day, and it had been ignored so completely that it felt almost impressive. That was when I stopped thinking about how to change Daniel's behavior and started thinking about why the behavior kept working. I stood there with my hand on the fence and realized the problem wasn't just disrespect. The problem was the fence itself. Flat top, easy grip, perfect height, useful. My fence wasn't just a boundary, it was a tool. As long as it stayed useful, they were going to keep using it. Not because they were cartoon villains, but because it solved their problem and my discomfort was invisible from their side. That realization changed everything. I didn't need a better speech. I needed a worse fence, at least for laundry. So that weekend, I went back to the same hardware store. I told the older guy behind the counter I wanted something to protect the top of a wooden fence from weather. He showed me a vinyl fence topper, smooth and rounded, designed to sit along the top edge like a cap. Helps water run off, he said. Keeps the wood from rotting. I ran my hand over it. Slick surface, curved edge, no flat ledge, no grip. And right there I knew I had my answer. Installing it took a couple of hours. By the time I finished, the fence looked better, cleaner, more finished. But the real difference was what it removed. That flat top was gone. The invitation was gone. The next afternoon, I heard voices from the other side, kids laughing, Daniel calling something out. Then I saw a pale shirt rise up over the fence line. A hand followed. A clothespin clipped down and slipped. The shirt sagged for one perfect second, then slid down the rounded cap and disappeared back into their yard. I won't lie, that was satisfying. A few seconds later, the same hand came back, tried a different angle, clipped again. Same result. Slip, slide, drop. No yelling, no lecture, just gravity doing exactly what I had hoped it would do. Over the next few days, it happened a couple more times. A towel, a pair of jeans, one small shirt that almost held on before surrendering to physics. Then just like that, it stopped. Completely. No more clothespins. No more sheets stretched across my view. No more stepping outside wondering what part of somebody else's routine had wandered into mine. Just my yard again, clean, quiet mine. A few days later, I ran into Daniel outside. No drama, no audience, just one of those ordinary moments where two people happen to be near the same fence. He nodded toward it and said, "Hey, you do something to that thing. Our stuff keeps slipping off lately." There it was, the opening. I could have unloaded weeks of irritation right there. Instead, I just said, "Yeah, I added a cap. Helps protect the wood from weather," which was true, just not the whole truth. He scratched the back of his neck, looked at the fence again, then said, "Yeah, we'll probably have to put up another line or something." And that was it. A week later, they did. I saw a second clothesline go up in their yard, actually built to do the job they'd been borrowing my fence to do. The kids still ran around. The laundry still flapped in the breeze. Life moved on. It just stopped crossing into my space. That whole thing taught me something I didn't expect. Not every boundary gets respected because you explain it well. Not every person changes because you ask nicely. Some people only recognize a line when it stops being convenient to ignore. And that's a hard lesson because we like to believe reason fixes everything. It doesn't. Sometimes kindness without structure just gets mistaken for access. Maybe that's true about fences. Maybe it's true about people. The part that felt good, and I'll admit this freely, was that nobody got humiliated. Nobody got screamed at. Nobody had to lose publicly. The boundary held because it finally had shape, not because I won some dramatic showdown. Karma, if that's what you want to call it, arrived wearing a vinyl fence cap and letting gravity handle the paperwork. Still, I think about it sometimes. Was the quiet fix the smarter move, or was it just the easier one? Did I solve the problem, or did I avoid the harder truth that some folks will keep taking until taking stops working? So tell me this. If you were in my place, would you have handled it the same way? Quiet solution, no confrontation. Or would you have forced the conversation and made the boundary unmistakably verbal, even if it made life awkward next door? Drop your take in the comments because I know people split hard on this kind of thing. And if you've ever had a neighbor situation that started small and turned into something way bigger than it should have been, I want to hear that too.